So, the Spurs got the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. This series comes down to 3 matchups. Of course, Wemby and Chet. Wemby is averaging 24.3 points per game this season, which puts him ahead of more than 96% of all NBA players in scoring. Chet Holmgren is averaging 17.3 points per game, which puts him ahead of 88% of players. That's a 7-point difference per game. And in a Western Conference Finals series, that kind of gap matters enormously. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Even though Wemby scores more, Chet is actually the more efficient scorer when you look at true shooting percentage. Chet's sitting at 65.3%, which beats out more than 89% of the league. Wemby's at 62.1%, which is still elite, beating more than 80% of players. Chet's getting 1.3 points per scoring attempt compared to Wemby's 1.2. So Chet is doing more with less. He's taking fewer shots, 11.4 field goal attempts per game to Wemby's 16.4, but he's converting at a higher rate. For the Spurs to win this series, Wemby can't just outscore Chet. He's going to have to be just as efficient while carrying a much heavier offensive load. Wemby's usage rate is 32.1%, which ranks above 98% of all NBA players. Chet's usage rate is 21.8%, above 77% of the league. What that means is, Wemby's involved in basically a third of every single offensive possession the Spurs run. He's taking 16.4 field goal attempts and getting to the line 6.8 times per game. Chet, on the other hand, takes 11.4 field goal attempts and gets 4 free throw attempts per game. The Spurs are asking Wemby to do so much more, and that's both a strength and a risk. If Wemby isn't on tonight, the whole offense feels it. On the glass, it's not even close. Wemby's averaging 11.3 rebounds per game, which puts him above 97% of the league. He's pulling down 9.4 defensive rebounds and 1.9 offensive boards. Chet's averaging 8.9 rebounds per game, which is still great, top 8% in the league, but his defensive rebound percentage is 22.27% compared to Wemby's 28.31%. Wemby's defensive rebound percentage puts him in the top 1% of all NBA players. That's a massive edge. Controlling the defensive glass in a playoff series is everything, and Wemby's cleaning it up at a rate Chet simply can't match. The blocked shots comparison is where Wemby really separates himself. He's averaging 3.2 blocks per game. Chet's at 1.9. Both of them protect the rim, but Wemby's doing it at a completely different level. His defensive metrics are ranked in the top 1% of the entire NBA. Chet's also in the top 1% for his mixed team defense rating, which is impressive. But when it comes to individual shot deterrence, Wemby has the clear advantage. He's averaging 1.0 steals to Chet's 0.7 as well. If Wemby is anchoring that defense the way he has all season, Oklahoma City's going to have a really tough time getting clean looks anywhere near the basket. Now let's talk about playmaking, because this is an area where there's a big difference. Wemby's averaging 3.0 assists per game, and his assist rate is 16.4%, meaning he's directly creating scoring opportunities for his teammates on more than 16% of possessions he's involved in. He's assisting on shots that total 7.4 points per game worth of output for his teammates. Chet's averaging 1.6 assists per game with an assist rate of just 7.85%, which ranks outside the top 80% of players. Wemby is a much more dynamic playmaker out of the pick and roll and post, and in a series where defensive coverage is going to shift and help constantly, that ability to find open teammates is going to be critical. The turnover numbers are close. Wemby's turnover percentage is 11.1%, and Chet's is 10.3%. Neither of them is a major liability with the ball, but Wemby does have the higher raw turnover total, 2.4 per game, compared to Chet's 1.5. That makes sense given how much more Wemby does with the ball, but it's still something to watch because turnovers in the Western Conference Finals can swing momentum fast. The teamwork numbers are honestly wild for both of these guys. Wemby's net rating is plus 16.7, and he's on the winning side of the plus minus in 81.3% of his games. His on-off split, meaning how much better the Spurs are with him on the floor versus off it, is plus 10.9. That's a 10.9 point swing. Chet's net rating is plus 16.8, nearly identical, but his on-off is only plus 6.5. That tells you Wemby is more indispensable to his team's success than Chet is to Oklahoma City. When Wemby's on the floor, the Spurs are dramatically better. When he's off it, that advantage shrinks in a big way. The Spurs' entire identity runs through Wemby, and that's exactly why he has to show up and show out every single game of this series. But that reminds me, this video is presented by PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy app. The playoff push is heating up right now, and with all these big games, I've been using PrizePicks a lot more. It just makes watching everything way more interesting, because now I'm not just watching the game, I actually have a take on how players are going to perform. I've always liked making player picks on PrizePicks, and now I can go even further. I can mix different player stat projections and build out my lineups however I want. So every single game actually matters way more. And what I like is everything is in one place. Whether it's playoff matchups or big tournament games, I can make all my picks right in the PrizePicks app. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, a preferred partner of the NBA. Now let's talk about the guard matchup, because this one is just as important as the big man battle. Fox is averaging 18.6 points per game, which puts him ahead of more than 90% of all NBA players. That sounds great until you look at who he's going up against. Shai, the back-to-back MVP, is averaging 30.9 points per game. That's not a typo. 30.9. That puts Shai ahead of more than 99% of every single player in the NBA. Fox is going to have to find a way to either slow Shai down on one end or completely go off on the other end, because a 12.3 point per game scoring gap between two starting guards in a conference finals is enormous. The efficiency numbers make it even more interesting. Fox's effective field goal percentage is 54.3%, which is right around average, beating out about 53% of the league. Shai's effective field goal percentage is 59.2%, which beats out 79% of the league. But the true shooting percentage is where you really see it. Fox is at 57.1%, right at the 50% mark for the league. Shai is at 65.5%, which ranks above 90% of all NBA players. Shai's getting 1.3 points per scoring attempt. Fox is getting 1.1. For every shot Shai takes, he's generating more value than Fox is, and Shai's taking way more shots. Shai's attempting 19.3 field goals per game. Fox is attempting 14.6. Shai is also getting to the free throw line 9.2 times per game compared to Fox's 3.5. That's a massive difference. Shai is drawing fouls at an elite rate, and that's going to be a problem all series long for San Antonio's defense. The usage rate comparison tells the whole story about how central each of these guys is to their team's offense. Shai's usage rate is 33.4%, which ranks above 98% of the entire NBA. He's involved in basically a third of every Oklahoma City offensive possession, taking 19.3 field goal attempts, drawing 9.2 free throw attempts, dishing 6.6 assists, and committing 2.3 turnovers across 69.6 possessions per game. Fox's usage rate is 24.9%, above 87% of the league, which is still a high usage role, but it's a noticeably lighter load than what Shai carries. Fox takes 14.6 field goal attempts, gets to the line 3.5 times, dishes 6.2 assists, and commits 2.3 turnovers across 65.9 possessions. The Spurs need Fox to be aggressive and attack, because if he's passive, Shai is just going to take over, and the series could get ugly fast. Now here's something Fox actually has going for him in a real way. He's a better playmaker than his scoring numbers suggest. Fox's assist rate is 28.46%, which ranks above 92% of all NBA players. He's averaging 6.2 assists per game and generating 15.6 points worth of assisted scoring for his teammates. That's genuinely elite playmaking. Shai's assist rate is 33.01%, above 95% of the league, and he's averaging 6.6 assists with 16.8 points assisted per game. So Shai edges Fox in playmaking too, but not by a dramatic margin. Both of these guys are legitimate offensive engines who make their teammates better, and that part of the matchup is going to be fun to watch. The turnover numbers are actually where Fox takes a clear loss when you compare the two. Fox's turnover percentage is 12.28%. Shai's is 8.89%. What that means is Shai is way better at taking care of the ball relative to how many actions he's involved in. Fox is turning it over on about 12 out of every 100 actions, while Shai is doing it on fewer than 9 out of every 100. And keep in mind, Shai is involved in way more actions per game. Shai's just doing more with the ball and protecting it better at the same time. Both guys are averaging 2.3 turnovers per game in raw numbers, but Shai is doing that while handling a significantly higher volume of possession. That efficiency with the ball is a big reason he's a 2-time MVP. On the defense side, Fox is actually solid. His mixed team defense rating puts him above 90% of all players in the league. He's averaging 1.2 steals per game and 0.3 blocks. Shai is averaging 1.3 steals and 0.8 blocks, with a mixed team defense rating that puts him above 97% of the league. Shai is the better defender by the numbers, which is wild to say about the league's leading scorer. He's a genuinely two-way player. Fox is no slouch on that end either, but Shai has the edge there too. The Spurs are going to need Fox to use his speed to disrupt Shai's rhythm, force him into tough spots, and create turnovers in transition, because Shai can't be allowed to get comfortable. The rebounding comparison doesn't mean as much for guards, but it's worth mentioning. Shai averages 4.2 rebounds per game, above 34% of the league. Fox averages 3.7, above 26%. Neither guy is a major factor on the glass, which makes sense for their positions, but Shai's defensive rebound percentage of 9.82% edges out Fox's 9.02%. These two are very similar rebounders, and neither is going to swing the series on the boards. That's what Wemby and Chet are for. The teamwork numbers for both guards show why their teams are so dangerous. Shai's net rating is plus 15.7, and he wins the plus-minus battle in 85.5% of his game. His on-off split is plus 9.1, meaning Oklahoma City is 9 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor versus off it. That's how you win back-to-back MVP awards. Fox's net rating is plus 10.0, and he's on the positive side of the plus-minus in 64.3% of his games. His on-off split is plus 4.3. The gap between these two numbers is significant. Shai impacts winning at a dramatically higher rate than Fox does, and the Spurs have to account for that every single minute Shai's on the court. What this all comes down to is pretty straightforward. Shai is the better scorer, the more efficient scorer, the better defender, and the more impactful player on winning by nearly every metric available. Fox has to play the game of his life in this series. He's going to need to attack aggressively, get into the paint, create for his teammates at that elite assist rate he's capable of, and use his speed to make Shai work on both ends. Fox can't afford to settle for jumpers at a 54.3% effective field goal rate when Shai is going to be putting up 30 points on 65.5% true shooting on the other end. The Spurs need Fox to be uncomfortable to guard, not just a guy running the offense. If Fox can push his scoring closer to the mid-20s and keep Shai under 26 or 27, the Spurs have a real shot. But if Shai gets his full 30.9 point average going in this series while Fox is sitting in the high teens, it's going to be a very long Western Conference Finals for San Antonio. Now let's shift to the other guard matchup in this series, because Castle versus Mitchell is a fascinating storyline heading into Game 1. Castle is averaging 17 points per game this season, which puts him above 87% of all NBA players. Mitchell, playing in his first playoff run as a second-year player drafted 38th overall, is averaging 17.6 points per game through 8 playoff games. So we're talking about essentially identical scoring averages, but the context around those numbers tells two very different stories. Castle's effective field goal percentage is 52.4%, which only beats out 39% of the league. That's below average efficiency for a guy averaging 17 points a game. His true shooting percentage is 57.8%, which is right around the league median. Now compare that to Mitchell in the playoffs. Mitchell shooting 53.8% from the field, 59% plus on effective field goal percentage, 39.5% from three, and 88.9% from the free throw line, with a true shooting percentage of 61.9%. Mitchell is the more efficient scorer right now, and he's doing it on the biggest stage of his career. Castle's going to have to clean up his shot making if he wants to go shot for shot with a guy who's been this locked in through 2 playoff rounds. Castle's true shooting of 57.8% is decent, but his effective field goal percentage of 52.4% is genuinely a concern. He's making 4.5 2-point field goals and 1.3 threes per game on 12.2 attempts. Mitchell is doing it on a lower usage rate of around 20%, but he's converting at a much higher clip. Mitchell's turnover percentage is under 10%, which is elite ball security for a young guard running pick and roll actions next to Shai. Castle's turnover percentage is 17.6%, which ranks below 86% of all NBA players. That's a real problem. Castle is turning it over on nearly 18 out of every 100 actions he's involved in, and he's averaging 3.2 turnovers per game in raw numbers. Mitchell's only committing 2.0 turnovers per game in the playoffs. If Castle keeps turning it over at that rate against Oklahoma City's defense, it's going to lead to easy transition buckets for a Thunder team that's already rolling. The playmaking comparison is where Castle genuinely shines though. His assist rate is 33.86%, which ranks above 96% of all NBA players. He's averaging 7.3 assists per game and generating 18.2 points of assisted scoring for his teammates. That's elite playmaking. For a 20-year-old in his first full NBA season, that's genuinely remarkable. Mitchell's assist rate in the playoffs is approximately 23%, and he's averaging 4.1 assists per game. Castle is the better playmaker by a wide margin, and that's going to matter in this series. If Castle can get his teammates involved early, keep the ball moving, and limit those turnovers, he can absolutely be the engine that makes San Antonio's offense click, even when things get tough. The defense numbers favor Castle in a real way. Castle's mixed team defense rating puts him above 95% of the entire NBA. He's averaging 1.1 steals per game and contributing to a team defensive rating of 109.1. He's also pulling down 3.9 defensive rebounds per game, which is solid for a guard. Mitchell's averaging 1.4 steals per game in the playoffs with a steal percentage of approximately 2.7%, which is elite. Mitchell's plus minus in the playoffs is plus 13.8 on average, which is enormous. Both of these guys are active and engaged on the defense end, but Mitchell's plus minus impact is hard to ignore. He's been a net positive every time he steps on the floor in these playoffs. Castle's rebounding is actually a sneaky advantage for the Spurs. He's averaging 5.3 rebounds per game, which puts him above 58% of the league. For a guard, that's really impressive. His offensive rebound percentage is 4.55%, above 59% of the league, and his defensive rebound percentage is 11.5%. Mitchell's averaging 3.0 rebounds per game in the playoffs with a per 36 rate of 3.9. Castle is the bigger presence on the glass between these two, and in a series where every extra possession matters, Castle crashing the boards could be a meaningful edge for San Antonio. Mitchell's per 36-minute production in these playoffs is 23.1 points, 5.4 assists, 3.9 rebounds, and 1.9 steals. That's starter production at a high level, and he wasn't even supposed to be a starter this postseason. He entered as a bench piece in the first round against Phoenix and Oklahoma City, swept that series in 4 games. Then he erupted in the Western Conference semifinals against the Lakers, averaging over 24 points per game in that series. He scored 20 points with 6 assists in Game 2, 24 points with 10 assists in Game 3, and 28 points in the series, clinching Game 4 while shooting above 50% from the field for the entire series. He set career playoff highs in both points and assists, became one of the youngest Thunder players ever to record a playoff double-double, and Oklahoma City entered this Western Conference Finals with a perfect playoff record. All of that with Mitchell as a key piece. Castle's on-off split for the season is plus 2.9, meaning the Spurs are about 3 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor versus off it. His teamwork rating puts him above 94% of the league, and his net rating is plus 10.5. He's on the winning side of the plus-minus in 63.8% of his games. Mitchell's plus 13.8 average plus-minus in the playoffs is just a completely different level of impact right now. Castle needs to match that energy immediately. Here's the bottom line on this matchup. Castle has the better playmaking numbers, the better rebounding, and solid defense. But Mitchell is more efficient offensively, takes better care of the ball, and has already proven he can go for 20 plus in a playoff series against a real opponent. Castle's turnover problem is the single biggest issue heading into this series. If he can get that number down, push his efficiency up, and use that elite assist rate to keep the Spurs offense flowing, he can absolutely hold his own against Mitchell. But if those 3.2 turnovers per game keep showing up, and Mitchell keeps shooting 53% while draining nearly 40% from 3, Castle's going to be fighting uphill all series long. This matchup might not get the same headlines as Wemby versus Chet or Fox versus Shai, but it could absolutely determine which team wins the Western Conference Finals. But when you zoom out and look at this series as a whole, it's genuinely one of the most compelling Western Conference Finals matchups in recent memory. You've got a San Antonio Spurs team built around the most physically gifted player the NBA has seen in a generation, going up against an Oklahoma City Thunder squad that just won back-to-back MVP awards with their franchise cornerstone and entered this series without dropping a single playoff game. Every single matchup on the floor matters, and every single matchup is competitive in its own way. Wemby is the most important player in this series. That's not a hot take. That's just the reality of the numbers. When he's locked in, the Spurs are a completely different team. Their defense tightens, their rebounding dominates, and their offense runs through someone who can score, pass, and create at a level no other player his age has ever done. But the weight of this series is on his shoulders in a way it isn't on anyone else's. Chet doesn't have to be the guy for Oklahoma City the way Wemby has to be the guy for San Antonio. The Thunder have Shai taking on that burden. Wemby has to carry his team while also competing against one of the best defensive front courts in the league. That's a massive ask, and how he handles that pressure will define this series more than anything else. Shai is the single biggest problem San Antonio has to solve. He's been the best player in the NBA for 2 straight seasons now, and he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down in the playoff. The way he scores, the way he creates, the way he gets to the free throw line, the way he takes care of the ball, it all adds up to someone who's nearly impossible to game plan against. Fox is fast and competitive and capable of big nights, but the gap between what Shai does and what Fox does is real and significant. Fox has to be at his absolute best every single night just to keep that matchup from becoming a series-defining problem for the Spurs. Castle and Mitchell is the wild card. Nobody's talking about it the way they're talking about Wemby versus Chet or Fox versus Shai, but it might be the matchup that decides the whole thing. Castle has elite playmaking ability for someone his age, and his defense is genuinely impressive. But those turnovers are a real liability against a Thunder team that's been playing flawless basketball all postseason. Mitchell has been one of the best stories of these entire playoffs, going from a bench piece to a legitimate starting contributor who can score, assist, and defend at a high level. If Castle can protect the ball and use his playmaking to keep the Spurs offense organized, he can hold his own. If he can't, Mitchell's going to make the Spurs pay every single time. Here's what makes the Spurs dangerous, despite being the clear underdog in almost every matchup on paper. They don't need to win every matchup. They need Wemby to be Wemby. They need Fox to outperform expectations, and they need Castle to be disciplined enough to not beat himself. If those 3 things happen simultaneously on a consistent basis, this series can absolutely go deep. The Thunder are an excellent team, but they're not invincible. Oklahoma City's undefeated playoff record is impressive, but they haven't faced a defense like the one Wemby anchors. They haven't had to game plan around someone with Wemby's combination of rim protection and offensive versatility at the same time. The Thunder's biggest advantage isn't any one individual matchup. It's their depth, their cohesion, and the fact that they've already been through 2 playoff series this year and haven't felt real adversity yet. They've been clinical. They've been efficient. They've looked like a team that knows exactly what they're doing at every moment. The Spurs haven't seen that kind of composure from an opponent yet this postseason, and Game 1 is going to tell us a lot about whether San Antonio is ready for that level of competition. But here's the thing about San Antonio. They've got Wemby, and Wemby changes the math on everything. He's the reason this series isn't a foregone conclusion. He's the reason Oklahoma City's coaching staff is losing sleep right now. No team in these playoffs has had to deal with someone who can affect the game the way he does on both ends of the floor simultaneously. The blocks, the rebounding, the scoring, the passing. It all compounds on top of itself and creates problems that can't be solved with a single defensive scheme or a single matchup. For the Spurs to win this series, all 3 of their star players have to elevate. Wemby has to be dominant, not just good. Fox has to be relentless, not just active. Castle has to be disciplined, not just talented. If all 3 of them do that over the course of 7 games, San Antonio can absolutely pull off one of the best upsets this conference finals has seen in years. If even one of them consistently underperforms, Oklahoma City has enough firepower to make up the difference and pull away. This series is going to be a war. It's going to be physical, it's going to be tactical, and it's going to come down to who can sustain their best basketball over 4 to 7 games against a team that's equally determined to win. The stats set the stage and tell you what each player is capable of, but what happens when the game is on the line in the 4th quarter of a close game 7? That's where legacies get decided, and both of these franchises are hungry for one.